a scrap piece of paper. I'm not going to start the note just yet. I just want to talk about the idea of what does it mean to invest money. Say if I took, my great uncle passes away and he leaves me some money and I want to invest it. What's that mean?
It means you're giving money to a company to start off their product, and then they'll in return give you money back.
Yeah. Now, that's very much on the right track. In fact, usually with these things, you give your money maybe to a company to help them start up. Maybe you give it to a bank, and they give you fixed interest rate. Maybe you give it to, what's one of the big ones? Yeah, governments need to lend money, right? So Canada runs a debt every year. You guys know this, right? If you read about like the budget deficit every year, Canada, puts, $800 billion in the budget and they only have $700 billion. Where does that $100 billion gap come from? And believe it or not, it is largely Canadian citizens and foreign citizens and people from other countries, but often Canadian citizens who want a good, safe place to invest their money. We feel pretty good about that the government of Canada is probably going to pay the debt back. So if you buy a GIC or something like that, often you buy these bonds for 5-year periods where they say we're going to keep your money for 5 years. And they pay, not huge returns, but they may say every year we're going to pay you 3.5% interest. Does that make sense? And so every year you get that bit of interest. And at the end, the bond's closed and you take your money away in cash and that's that. Does that make sense? Government borrows money, you lend it to them, and you charge them a fee to do so. We call that investing. But the money we earn on that we call interest. Does that make sense? Interest. So here's what I want to say. Let's say I bought a $100 investment, and we're going to make the math real simple. Because this thing's going to pay me out 5%. And I'm going to do this for 5 years. Okay? That makes sense. So I find an investment that will give me 5% of my money back every year. At the end of 1 year, how much money is my investment worth? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, at the end of 1 year, what's my money worth? $105. Good. Does that make sense? So at the start, I'd have $100. After 1 year, I would have $105. Good. And then what do I have after 2 years? What do I have after 2 years? Getting 5% every year. What is it? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Your instinct may be to say $110, right? But the thing is, in that second year, you're not earning 5% of $100 because you don't own $100 worth of that investment anymore. Now you own $105 worth of that investment. So it's not going to be 110. What is it going to be? Ooh, big money. You made yourself extra quarter. But listen, believe it or not, that extra quarter is how people become millionaires. We're going to talk about that. Okay, third year. What are we worth? How much? 115.76. That sounds good. Does that make sense to everybody? What are we doing to get these numbers? Yeah, what are we multiplying it by? So 105 by 1.05. Good. Why is that? There we go. And then here we multiplied it by 1.05. And for the fourth year, what are we going to have? 121.55. Look, now we've earned a whole $1.55 over if it were just $5 a year. Pretty good, because we multiplied that by 1.05. And at the end of our 5-year term, what do we get? Okay, so I think we can agree on 120 127.63. Okay. I think we can all agree this, in and of itself, not a get-rich-quick scheme. Yes? Okay. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to just go out and buy a $100 GIC, wait 5 years, and then like have mad amounts of money. It doesn't quite work that way. What kind of growth is this? Exponential growth. We did a whole unit about this. So could we have written this, instead of having to do this over and over again, every time we take our original amount? What was our original amount? 100. And what did we multiply it by? Yeah, so what did we multiply it by? 1.05. And then how many times did we have to do that to get to the 5th year? 5. So try this. Put this to the exponent 5. Try that. See if you get the same thing. Get the same answer? Nice. So we have here a nice simple equation we could use where whatever n I put in there, it should tell me how much my money is worth after n years. Does that make sense? What if I put this measly little $100 in for 30 years? What if you turned 12, got $100 for your birthday and said, I'm investing it, and you left it there and left it there and left it there. 30 years, what do you got? Oh, that's so depressing. So n equals 30. All of a sudden, we are now worth 400 something. Okay, what if we left it for 50 years? Definitely more than that. What do we get then? Cool. All right, so kind of getting the hang of it. Does that make sense? Does that mathematically make sense to everybody? All this means is that we're going to multiply this number by 1.05 this many times. It just keeps happening. So with that in mind, I want to introduce you to the first equation we're going to use. And it's an equation you've already used. It's just the exponential growth equation. But we're going to use the letters they use in financial math. Does that make sense? So we're going to say that FV equals PV times 1 plus I. Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry, I took a finance class in university and they used a different formula. They used the one we use. And then to the exponent n. Now we're going to modify this a bit later on because the thing I introduced you, or the thing I almost introduced you to here, I like better. But this is the official formula. If you looked in your textbook, you would see this. Now, what do all these things mean? FV. Yeah, they use slightly different wording. They use future, but you've got exactly the right idea. Future value. FV is how much your money is going to be worth in the future. What's your favorite band?
What? I'm trying to figure out.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. What does PV stand for, do you suppose? Very good. What do you think I stands for? Yeah, that's right. By the way, we remember this way back from our exponential equation. Why is the 1 in there? What's that 1 doing? Why wouldn't, if I'm earning 5%, why wouldn't I just multiply this by 5%? Oh, okay, why? That's right, you don't lose the money. If I did it just 5%, all of a sudden at the end of 1 year, I'd only have $5. That'd be pretty crappy. And then at the end of that year, I'd only have 25 cents. That'd be crappier, right? And this would just keep going and going. So you have to put the 1 there so that we don't lose the money we start with. We're always keeping the money we start with and then growing by whatever I is. And then n, we're going to be very specific here, is the number of compounding periods. It's the number of compounding periods.
Orlando?
Speaking.
Orlando?
Speaking.
Trinity there.
She is, yeah.
She come to guidance, please.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
Do you need guidance, Trinity?
No, he just wants
Don't I hear you? Okay, now, what does it mean by a compounding period? What do we mean by a compounding? Sorry? Very good. So in the example we used, we assumed that I collect interest how often?
Once a year.
Once a year. Is that always the case?
No.
No, not necessarily. If you own stocks, you're potentially earning interest every single day, but you're also potentially losing money every single day. That's why people check them every day. So we're going to get into some financial terms. The first one I've given to you. It is annually. What's it mean to do something annually?
Every year.
Every year. How many times that year?
One.
Just once. So,
Like Christmas.
yeah, Christmas happens annually. It happens once a year.
Halloween.
Now,
Annual flowers like that there once a year.
that's right.
That's true.
As
Are
opposed
you looking at me like I'm crazy?
Now-
You're not crazy, Dan.
what I want to mention is this. If you only collect interest once a year, you collect all of the interest at that time. Does that make sense? So if it's 5% interest a year, the one time that year you collect interest, how much of it do you collect? 5%. Does that make sense? We don't have to play with that I value because it just is intuitive. Likewise, if you only collect interest once a year, the end value is going to be easy. It's just how many years, right? If I collect interest for 12 years and I'm collecting it annually, the number of compounding periods is just going to be however many years. Does that make sense? Cool. What does semi-annually mean? Once a year, I guess. What's it mean? Twice a year. Good. And how often is that then? If it's twice a year, that goes here too. But that means it compounds at once every
6 months.
really good. Once every 6 months. This is how mortgages work in Canada. I don't know why. But your mortgage interest is charged twice a year. Yeah,
Can you erase the 2 and put it under the 1?
I suppose I can, yeah. How's that? Is that better?
Beautiful.
Now I wish I'd censored the 1. But, go ahead, results. Cool. All right, now, if you collect interest twice a year, say you're getting 5% interest per year. If you're collecting it twice, are they going to give you 5% both times?
No.
No, because then that would be 10%, right? So we have to we have to take the whatever the interest rate is and divide it by 2. That makes sense? And then for the end value, I'm just going to say that it would be however many years times 2. So if it was 3 years, semi-annually, you'd collect interest 6 times. If you're investing for 10 years semi-annually, you'd actually collect interest 20 times. Does that make sense? All right. Let's see if you can fill the rest of these out. Yeah, go through, fill the rest out down below. I'll come around and say things like, hey, good job, or that's the right idea, or oh, sorry, baby's got a loan in the school. I don't know winter. I like spring. I like winter and I like summer, but I'm uncomfortable in both of them. But all spring I'm comfortable, and all fall I'm comfortable. I like moderate weather. I'd love to live like in California, like Northern California, DC.
I mean, you usually take it.
Lots of rain, but it's cool temperature. I could be British. I could be British. I could never see the sun again. I have faith in you.
I don't know. How I know that. Would be 4. No. I don't talk about it.
There must be some kind of kindergarten song we can sing.
Where? I have to load it every.
I actually often think that I don't use enough songs in my teaching practice. When I watch like Calvert, he's like rapping and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I could do that.
Why don't you sing everything?
Not rap? You don't think I'd be a great rapper?
No, I mean, his kind of rap isn't my kind of rap.
No? What's your kind of rap?
I mean, I can't.
I'm waiting for you to jump in and start.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to say a lot of them.
Okay. Fair enough.
I know what kind of, your kind of.
Yes. What you're saying is you'd like Mr. Calvert to use more racial slurs.
Yes.
And, okay. You should probably go tell him that. Calvert, your math class would be so much better if you just used racial slurs.
Got fired really quickly.
Yeah. Did you? I shouldn't talk. I'm recording. But whatever. Just get over there and do that. But there was a famous teacher who got fired in California for making all of his test questions about drug deals. Like he was teaching like grade 10 math, and so all of his word problems were like, if so and so is planning to sell whatever, like I don't know reasonable numbers for this, but like 50 grams of heroin and blah blah blah.
And he said he wanted to go to California.
No, I never have. But anyway, anyway, you can like Google this and find them, and the test questions are, to be honest, rather hilarious, but not appropriate. And it's reasonable that this guy lost his job.
There's 4 grams in every teaspoon, so that would be that.
Well, that's like different things have different densities, right? So right, like a gram of feathers is a lot smaller than, a lot bigger rather than like a gram of gold.
That's true.
That's
so
because water is pretty much
We're talking
exactly.
about powders, and we're saying
Because water is pretty much
measurements. I think we're pretty. Yeah.
Because water is pretty much exactly 1 milliliter is 1 gram. I don't know about that.
You finally realized that if there's 40 grams, you charge 20.
I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, okay. So let's see if we can go through this. If I am compounding quarterly, how often is that? Every 3 months. That's right, 4 times a year. So that's every 3rd month. This is how businesses usually calculate earnings and things like that. They issue quarterly statements. How many times is that per year? 4. How would you find your interest rate then to plug into the equation? Yeah, you're going to have to remember that you have to divide that interest rate by 4. And when you go to figure out how many compounding periods, what are you going to do? Yeah, however many years you do this for, you're going to multiply it by 4, because that's 4 times a year. Cool. What about bi-monthly? Every 2 months. And that's 6 times a year. So what would I do to the I value? I'd divide it by 6. And we could take how many years, and we could multiply it by 6. Cool. Next one I hope would be pretty obvious. Monthly, that compounds once every month is correct. How many times a year would that be? Hey, all you elementary school grads. You go to? Was it?
Kathy Weaver.
Kathy Weaver representing.
They named it after a cop.
Wow.
It was like a Mass having.
You know, I went to a school called James Morden, and it occurs to me that I went there from from grade 2 to grade 8, and I never learned who the guy was. If you go to a school with a guy's name, James Morden, no idea who that is. That's kind of weird. You'd think there'd be Morden, but you think there'd be like a good name. You think there'd be a plaque or something. You have like an Uncle James or something, Grandpa, that somebody would name the school after. Oh, do you really?
Yes, I don't know what his dad's name is. There might be.
Oh, there you go. Anyway, I might have gone to a school. What would you do the interest rate if we're doing it monthly? Divide by 12, and we do years times 12. All right, and then obviously biweekly. Compounds once every 2 weeks. Okay, ready? How many times is that here? Oh, very good. Why is it 26? Very good. And then obviously if we do this, we have to take the annual interest rate and do what with it? Yeah, divide by 26. And if we want to know the end value, you could do how many years times 26. Okay, weekly, that's every week. How many times a year is that? 52. When I was a kid, I always got the number of weeks in a year and the number of states in the United States mixed up. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but that's a true thing. I used to do that. It's just like a thing, you know. I also often get the number of letters, when I was a kid, the number of letters in the alphabet mixed up, which is 26, is that true? Mixed up with the number of hours in the day, which I know is now is 24. These are the things that used to keep me up at night. That's why I want you to be. You know, it explains why over the course of my life, every day I sleep in 2 hours more and 2 hours more. So every few weeks I'm back on schedule and getting up well, and then, yeah. Okay, the I value, what would we do here? Divide by 52. And obviously, if we needed to, we could say how many years it is times 52. Good. All right. And lastly, daily means that's compounding once every, is that? 365.25. I'm being serious here, by the way. Why 0.25? Every 4 years is a leap year. That's right.
I thought there was 4 days in a year.
Oh my gosh. I'm so angry. Yes. Yeah. Could you make sure, because other people's also had issues, I thought I went through and found them all.
That's what I want to see.
Do you mind? Yeah. Do you mind just checking with the other people writing? And it was only on this page that there were any issues. Just make sure that they all have this.
I figured it was. I just figured it.
No, don't check it, or do, but you know. Okay, and if we want to know the I value, what do we have to do? Yeah, divide by that number. Do you know the other rule with leap years? So it's every 4th year except what? Does anyone know? Except for multiples of 100, except for multiples of 100. So like the year 2000 was scheduled to be a leap year, like in theory and like in terms of just every 4th year, but it wasn't actually a leap year because they do every 4th year except multiples of 100.
A year younger. If we only age every 4 years, I would be 40.
The number of leap years in a day does not affect your age.
I am 4 years old.
It does not.
I'm the smartest.
Even
it
if
wouldn't affect your age, but it would affect the baby board. Like instead of the 11th, have you born after 12.
it's true, yeah, it could shift. You could be shifted if you were born late, like March or beyond. Oh, sorry. It's except if it's divisible by 100 and not divisible by 1,000. That's right. So no, that's true.
Okay, that's very, very specific.
It is. That's right. Oh, you can look the rules up. They are very specific.
Why would I look up the rules? I don't care.
That's right. You don't have to care, but someone has to. Yeah, there's very specific leap year rules.
Why specific?
Because otherwise our calendar will fall out of sync.
Our calendar's already out of sync.
No, it's not. And the point being,
They started counting late.
how would it work if all of a sudden, like middle of July, it's winter here, and you go, oh, I wish we
How
kept
would it work
track.
if we started 0 today?
That's right. Okay, so now, if you want to, This lets you use a modified version of the formula. If you prefer, the above one works, but we can also say the future value is equal to the present value times 1 plus the interest rate divided by C/Y. Yeah, C/Y to the exponent of n times CY. Now, we know what all these other letters are. What is FV? Future value. Good. It's what's going to be worth in the future. What's PV? Yeah, that's right. What is I? The interest rate. But this here, C/Y, is, yeah, compounding periods per year. And if you're using this version, then you need to make sure that n is measured in, since you're multiplying it by how many times it compounds per year, n would have to be how many, not how many compounds you have, because you're multiplying it by compounds per year. It would have to be how many years specifically. So if you're going to use this formula, it has to be measured in years specifically. Oh, can you read them to me?
Yeah. So, like everyone knows, there's a leap year every 4 years.
Yep.
The number has to be 23 multiplied by 4, which is like 26 divided
Yep.
by 4. Except for years which are both divisible by 100 and not divisible by 400.
400, that's right.
The second part of that will affect century years. For example, the century 1600 and 2000 are leap years.
But all the other century years are
Yeah,
not.
but the century 1700, 1800, 1900 are. So it's basically also every 12 centuries as well.
Huh.
So you're actually doing the leap year.
So every fourth year, except for century years, in which case it's only every fourth century year, starting at 0. Ah, there we go.
So the next one will be,
2020.
no, I meant the next.
Oh, the next.
century will be-
2400.
Yeah.
The beginning of the 25th century. There you go.
Also be there.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
think so.
about that.
I'm hoping to be like one of those heads in a jar
Why would you
with like a robot body. Are you kidding? Why would you want it to have a robot body and be a head in a jar?
I said
Sounds
that
pretty
before in
amazing.
the second half, but also that's so weird. Why wouldn't you just put your brain in a full robot like head and body?
Oh yeah. I want people to see my face. Look at me. With laser eyes. This is getting better all the time.
Or why wouldn't you just change your normal body with a bunch of
Lasers-
I don't want to be
lasers
a
can go
cyborg
through
though,
glass.
like that.
Lasers can go through glass. What do you think the lens on a laser is made out of? Hint, glass.
No.
Yes. Yes. My laser eyes will shoot through the glass. I'll also be able to use them to control the temperature of the water in my head. Yeah, no, I've got it all planned out now. Just right now, I'm planning this whole thing. It's going to be great.
I do like the idea of
And I can't decide if I want like a tread, like a tank on my robot body, or if I prefer like spider legs. I'm thinking spider legs, right? Like, yeah. Spider legs are better.
terrain versus tank. You just gotta
I
find.
saw.
What we're discussing you with a robot body?
Yeah, yeah. In the year 2400. And I'll be so excited to celebrate the leap year. Okay.
Bro, I was talking about this centuries ago.
That's right. I remember in 2017 when we had this conversation.
You wouldn't remember.
These robot legs are even better than I hoped they'd be.
The dimension would be crazy. You wouldn't know how to control your robot legs.
This is possible. Okay, I want you guys. I assume that my brain is better than other people's. There's no evidence of that so far, but I'm hopeful for the future. Okay, so I want everyone to try this example one question then. Nice, easy one. You can use either formula of your preference. Just keep in mind, if you use the top one, you have to adjust the numbers like this. If you use the bottom one, you don't, and you just have to know what the compounds per year are. So the choice is yours. Yeah, because 4.3 as a percent would be wise.
Whoa.
You are giving yourself 430% interest a year. That's a pretty good deal, but you're probably going to have trouble finding a bank to pay. How do you make
The money was about $8 billion.
How do you make 4.3% in the investment?
Probably 0.042.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the step we all would love to skip, but your banker is unlikely to skip. You don't need to be employed with the bank very long if
But
it's
if
in
you
the
can
habit.
use your banker while you're doing that.
That's right. If you could get the newbie.
Yeah, and then the banker will.
Does that. Well, what did you come up with? Was it billions? Because they can handle billions.
I got 8,287,285,490.
Okay, I can't even get $1,000 from my Swiss bank account.
Yeah,
They're probably not gonna give me a billion.
That's true. I was tracking that my wife deposits her paycheck every month. And every month they put it down payment. It's like a registered check from the government, which she is paid by OHIP, right? So she goes. So like cashing a government check from the government of Ontario, you'd think that they would just put it in the bank, but then they just hold it for the like I can see holding on to one of my I'm sure that would be. Yeah, so like we are, but not directly, right? So we get paid by the school board.
Yeah, that's definitely
And you got that really big number.
So let's take a look. Let's see what people are doing. So I started throwing some numbers up here. I said, the science teacher in me kind of likes to make a list of my variables on the side. You certainly don't have to do this, but I like to. So if we do this, my present value is, did you ever have teachers do like the grasp thing, like given? I haven't done that, but
Nope.
anyway. So the present value of this thing is $3,400. Future value, well, I don't know. The interest rate is 4.3%. I need to make that decimal. That's going to be 0. Unless you screw over the newbie. How many times does this compound every year? 12. Why 12? Because it's monthly. Good. I'm going to put a little note there. monthly. And in this case then, since I am sticking with that, how many years? 4 years. Okay. So my future value, well, I'm starting with 30, whoa, $100. And I'm multiplying it by, what on the bottom? The comma? Like that's how I write, like say the word y'all. I believe that's called an apostrophe. But y'all don't put an apostrophe. And a number, or as I prefer to call them, of course, numbers. That's very folksy with the number.
You never noticed on my map that I've done that?
No. I've probably wondered, like, you know what I probably thought? I probably thought you were just like putting like a little tick to keep track of like your zeros, which, you know, is essentially what it's for. But I guess it never occurred to me that like that was what you thought was like the formal place to put it, which it isn't, but that's okay. I mean, I don't care. I mean, like, that's not like first date material. If you're going on a first date and it comes up like that you have to write a number over 1,000, I'd put the comma down below. Yeah.
The number sign of the other number.
Yeah. Anyway, let's focus. So what do we put in the brackets here? Well, we put 1 because we want to keep our $3,400. We're not losing that. The interest rate is 0.043, and we have to divide that by 12 because we're not getting interest once in a year. We're getting interest 12 times that year, and they're not going to give us 4% interest all 12 times. That'd be nice. You'd make a lot of money, but they're not going to do that. And then up above, what am I going to put this to? What exponent? Yeah, 4 times 12. 4 because I'm investing this for 4 years, times 12 because every year I get my interest 12 times. And I would just plug this into your calculator all in one big long step. What do we get? $4,036.86. Like that? And that rounds nicely. There you go. And your money made you $600. Not a ton. Yeah, there you go. That's not bad. You didn't do anything during that money. You just gave it there and said, hey, grow. Yeah. Okay, I want you guys to try the next page.
Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not supposed to have a bracket inside the bag. I don't know.
I shouldn't be allowed to write these notes late at night.
I've never expected it that.
I am thrifty. I don't know if I'm a fellow, but I'm definitely thrifty. I'm definitely 33.
With a knife or a blade.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm there.
Yeah, no, I don't like to spend money.
Oh, I know exactly. I don't know. I don't know what doing. There you go.
Yeah, we're still with low rates because, believe it or not, you know what the average investment in Canada earns every year? No? Just shy of 4. Isn't that the question? Just shy of 4. Well, it depends on what you ask. So, like the Dow Jones Industrial for the last 10 years, the last 50 years, has averaged 10%. But the average Canadian investor who actually builds on the market does worse than that. Which means that for most Canadians, if instead of trying to play day trader and make mass money, they just bought an index fund. An index fund is just you can buy a fund that says we don't try to do anything wild and crazy. We just match the data. Whatever's in the Dow Jones, which is sort of how we and they have another one for the S&P 500. And those bonds tend to be cheap, or those funds they tend to be cheap because they're not particularly strongly managed. And they tend to overperform.
Can we do this math work? We just watch multiple
Four times 12, right?
I think it's
I think probably more, Andrew.
The Big Short, perhaps. That's better.
I didn't see those.
You know what? I mean, so I didn't necessarily love their gimmick, but I thought it's a great story that needs to be told. Like they keep kind of cutting out to it and like having like just random celebrities showing up and explaining to you how things work, and I found that kind of distracting.
It's so much
Good film. B plus.
I did it again for.
You gave yourself
It's so long to get rid of.
you gave yourself massive interest
It's
again.
fine.
No, I put the,
Oh, the call up top. It's okay. You know what? You gotta be you. Don't let anyone tell you who you should be. Unless that person's better than you. Pay attention. If that guy's a floating head in a jar with a robot body, you listen up.
He retired at 80.
That's what that is.
Why would that be anybody's plan?
Listen, I don't do well with like 2 weeks off. Christmas holidays come and like the first 4 days I'm like, this is great. And then like the 5th day, I'm like, I gotta get back to this thing. It's crazy.
Get a hobby.
Lots of hobbies. They're not the same. Not the same. Like if you have a project, that's cool. But like, I like work. There you go. There you go. That's a thought.
going to Peace Corps.
But useful. I'm not gonna walk in stuff like that.
Well, I
I
know.
thought we wanted that. Just think about
Rachel Martin there.
Yes. Rachel is Rachel is on her way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I see that woman every morning.
I'm sorry.
And she says, hello.
She's probably got a big list in front of her. Like, she's not thinking.
Sorry, again.
Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
Was that about the Oscar thing?
That was gonna take a long time to get rid of.
Is this right?
Let's take a look.
Am I going to?
I think this is.
I need help.
Let me help. That looks good.
I'm not getting the right amount on my calculator. I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, can I see the setup first? Okay, so 15,000 times 1 plus 5 divided by 4. It's compounded quarterly, great. And then you said 51 years times 4. Okay, can I see? I suspect that it wants you to put brackets around your exponent. Try that. Try 51 times 4 in brackets. Does that look like other people's numbers?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Do I look like a Jesus sculpture in Rio?
No. Good try.
Okay, so when we did this, we said the future value. Oh, that's a red pen. I don't want that. We said the future value should be equal to what? What'd you do? What'd you put in? Future value equals. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Over 4. Yep. Great. And when you did that, did we get like 70,000, 80,000, something like that?
I got 88,000.
88,000?
$88,702.32.
$88,702.32. Did I get that down right?
Oh,
Okay.
the investment is so much better.
Have we done the other one yet?
No.
Okay, get on it.
15.
To 10?
It's 10.
Must get the extra $5,000 there over $100,000.
Yeah, from 15,000 to 10,000. That does not work.
I want a really nice dinner, like really nice.
And it costs you
$5,000,
$5,000.
just me. by
That's
myself.
still low beta world fest.
I read a book the whole time. It was great. It was a dream.
Probably not. I bet there's just like this one amazing. No, there's probably this one amazing.
It's
restaurant
probably the
somewhere.
same.
There's probably this one restaurant somewhere that's like $5,001 for the dinner plate.
If you do the one in China where as long as you climb up the mountain and kill people, you get it for free.
I went to a restaurant once in DC where you eat in pitch black, like it's completely dark.
Oh, we're on the weekend.
So they're serving you like people. Jet Li and Hannibal.
I don't think so. I think it's meant to be like a pop-up guard experimental thing.
So we're doing the same amount of years.
Yeah, everything else is the same. Everything else is the same. Just less money, but more interest. And like a lot less, like only 2/3, 67% of the money. Okay. Good. So what did we put in here? 10,000, and then inside this one we had what? What do you got?
What?
In the bracket, what'd you put?
1 plus 0.045 over 52 close bracket. 50 equals 51 times 52.
51 times 52? Yes, it is. All right, there we go.
And each the value is $99,145.91.
99,000. Cool. All right, there we go. I'm just trying to make you feel comfortable. I'm just joining in. I have to be honest, just looking at that makes me feel crazy. I can't do it. Well, that's good. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was trying to join in, but I can't handle it.
Oh, you have to do it all day. You actually have to put the number sign at the end of the number.
Some people actually do that.
Like the dollar sign?
Actually, yeah, that's how you write in French, but no, even like people that only speak English do that.
See, I used to do it because it makes sense when you're reading it, because you say dollars at the end of the
It's
number.
true though, it actually.
By the way, take a look. This is telling. I mean, now we're talking over a long span here, 52 years, right? Long.
51
time. Now, having said that, you know, when my kids were born, each of them, I put $2,000 into an account, eventually a trust for them for when they're 40. You know, I figure when I'm long dead and gone. Yeah, 40.
Wait, how old were you when you had the kids?
470.
Yeah, I know. I've
So
done.
you would never die before you retire?
Listen, I've done the actuarial math. I think I got like 20 more good years in me, and I'm out of here.
Wow.
Especially us.
Yeah, I got it all figured out. And then they freeze me, and then a couple hundred years, when they've got really nice water tanks, laser eyes, and robot legs, I'm back, baby. I'm back.
Just freeze me. Just constantly keep my body alive.
Right? Yeah,
You really
exactly.
have this planned out.
Oh yeah, no, it's
Like those
it's
two
good.
things from Star Trek Into Darkness. You just put them in those.
But exactly. So anyway, case in point, if you take a look, yeah, we're talking over a big span, but you can invest a lot less money. There's a big difference between 15,000 and 10,000. You can invest a lot less money and make a lot more money if your interest rate is higher. It's a big takeaway from today. Just for the sake of argument, go back to this one here, and just imagine instead you put it on the stock market. I want you to redo this one, but instead, you know, the average stock investor doesn't do that well. But if you look at certain financial advisors, my financial advisor publishes his statistics, and his average return for one of his clients is 9.5% last year. Last year, my account with him did about 10%. My wife's did about 11.5%. We had good years. So imagine that you average 8.5% interest. Change this equation. See what happens.
Do I have to?
That same $15,000, but now you're on the stock market, you're being carefully managed. 8.5% falls roughly in line with what the stock market has done in the long term over time. Everything else is the same. Still 15 grand, still 51 years, still 4 times a year. What do you get?
Ooh. Why is it coming? Oh, I didn't divide by 4.
Yeah, you're gonna have to
I
divide
got
by 4.
$2.5.
Wow.
That's
Nice to know
that would
your
be some
financial-
poor investing. That would be if you hired me as your financial planner.
And you're a math teacher, that's it.
Listen,
Tell us these things.
no,
We don't
listen.
want to know.
Listen,
about
financial planning is a whole different beast. You have to research companies, understand, be
Oh,
able
I
to read a
want
business
that.
plan. Yeah, what's
Or
that?
We could just do what that cat does, where it rolls the balls. Stuff the one
It is a
stick.
very big number.
Yeah, what's that?
1094040.
Okay, could you gotta give me some kind of like separation here?
No separation.
You're just giving numbers to me. What do we got? I see.
1, comma.
Error.
$1,094,040.62. That's a crazy difference. From 88 grand to 1 million, interest rates matter. Interest rates matter. Hey, if I am going on a trip, and God forbid, let's say I spend a bit too much money. Let's say I go on my trip, and as things will happen, you say I'm not going to spend more than $1,000. You spend $2,000. You come back, you don't have enough money in the bank to pay off your credit card. Look at this and think about the difference, leaving it on my credit card at 16.5% per year, or maybe going to my line of credit and transferring $1,000 out of it to cover my credit card for that year, for that month, pay it up the next month, and that gets charged 2.25% interest a year. Which one's the smart bet? And you may think, well, it's not that much money, it's not that long, it doesn't make much difference. But if you make these decisions over time and time and time and time again, these things add up. When you go to buy your first home, they'll say, well, do you just want us to, you're supposed to put 20% down. We're going to talk about this in a couple days. You're supposed to put 20% down. But if you only put 10% down, we'll just charge you a little fee. There's like a $4,000 fee, but you save that 10% you're supposed to put down. So that saves you 20 grand. And we just build it into your mortgage. And they make it sound like it's the greatest thing. Oh, it's just built into my mortgage. And I just don't have to think about it. Well, except now, your mortgage is designed so it takes you 20, 25, maybe 15, maybe 30. They sell 35-year mortgages now. That you're taking 35 years to pay that off. So that extra $3.5 grand that you tapped in there for mortgage insurance that you said, oh, no big deal, is sitting there earning interest at 4% a year, 5% a year, 3% a year right now for 35 years maybe. And you're just paying on it. Interest matters. And listen, in the 80s, mortgage rates hit 18% a year. Crazy interest rates. Yeah, well, I mean, right now, the rates are the lowest they've ever been. When I bought my first house in 2006, I shopped around like crazy. I spent weeks on the phone, faxing, emailing, going back and forth. Faxing, it was a different time, it was a simpler time. And phoning and saying, hey, I just got off the phone with Manulife Financial and I can get this rate. And they said, well, if you can send us a document that says they're offering you that rate, we'll match it. And then phoning the other and saying, hey, they've matched it. But back and forth. It took endless effort on my part. And I got a rate. I talked them down to a rate of 5.95% per year. And I felt like a god.
Oh my God.
I was like a full percentage point under anyone else I knew who bought a home that year. I was like, I'm amazing. 1 year later, the financial collapse happened. And when I renewed my mortgage last time, I was on the phone for about 3 minutes, and it was 1.95%. Like just nothing. Just yeah, you gonna renew? Yeah. What's the rate right now? For returning customers, 1.95. I said, okay, done. Boom.
You wouldn't try and get it down.
I couldn't even be bothered. It's just, you know what I eventually talked them into was locking that in for a longer period than they normally do. I mean, that rate, you'll never see another rate like that in your life, probably. That is crazy low. Well, what I'm saying is, rates. No. For you guys, when I was coming into the housing market, buying a house wasn't necessarily a big concern kind of long term, and it was fairly expensive, so it wasn't necessarily your best investment. There was an argument to be made that doing other things. Right now, real estate, good investment, because rates, crazy low. And this will probably hang on for a few years. I think most economists are saying rates are going to be low probably for the next decade, probably the next half a decade at least. Things are looking pretty stagnant. So when you guys are coming into the time when you might have your first job, be making some decent money, be thinking about buying your first home, probably be a good time for it.
I don't want to buy a house.
Buy the land.
I will tell you, if I weren't married with kids, I would never buy a house. Or you could do what like my cousin does. He owns a house that he doesn't even live in. He owns 3 of them, in fact. He rents them out. Pay his bills. Yeah.
Oh, he's a landlord.
No, once they paid off the mortgage, you can sell it, and that's just money in the bank,
I know
right?
someone's like super rich and all they do is just buy really cheap houses, fix them up and sell them for like way more than you bought them for.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear though, you say that like all he does, but like that's a job like any other. Like if you do that, Neil, and you make 50 grand, that's great. But like you've probably put enough work in to be comparable to other 50 grand a year jobs. Anyway, this is the end of today's lesson. I'm going to leave you with a couple of questions of homework.
Come on,
Yeah, no,
we're literally in the middle of studying for exams. You don't give us homework. I do.
That is very true.